Welcome to the eerie hour. Some places don't just haunt you, they wait. You find yourself standing before the house again. It squats low against the bruised evening sky, its dark windows like vacant eyes watching from beneath heavy, sloping brows of eaves. The air here is always still, holding its breath, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else. Something like old paper and forgotten things. You came seeking quiet, a place untouched by the constant hum of the world, and the house offered it, draped in silence like a shroud. But the quiet isn't empty. It feels occupied, waiting. The first days were peaceful, or seemed to be. Just the settling sounds of old wood, the whisper of wind through unseen cracks. Nothing out of the ordinary, not really. Just the feeling of being observed, a prickle on the back of your neck when you passed certain thresholds, a lingering chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. You brought a handful of things, left most behind. You didn't need much here, just stillness and maybe a place to finally open the box you carried, the one filled with questions. If you enjoy descending into the strange and the forgotten, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your theories below. Now let's begin. But remember, once the story starts, something always follows. You approach the door you secured moments ago. You know you secured it. You remember the click of the latch, the slight resistance as you pulled it shut, leaving it sealed, or at most, only slightly ajar to the narrow, unused hall beyond. But now, it's open wider, not wide enough to pass through easily, but undeniably ajar, the dark rectangle of the opening a stark contrast against the muted light of the room you stand in. Your breath catches. There is no rational explanation. You are the only one here. The windows are closed. No draft could have forced it open. You walk forward slowly, the floorboards making no sound beneath your feet, as if the house itself is holding its breath with you. This is the first clear paranormal event, the first undeniable breach of the mundane. Peering inside reveals only absolute darkness. It's not just the absence of light. It feels dense, deeper than any shadow the corners of the room can cast. It swallows light, leaving nothing visible. A strange, unsettling silence seems to emanate from within this void, a profound lack of sound that differs from the house's usual, expectant quiet. It's a pressure, a nullification of noise that presses against your eardrums. Standing near the opening, you feel a subtle, unpleasant change in the air. Colder, perhaps. Or just heavier, carrying a faint, almost chemical scent, like on the edge of the doorframe, where the wood meets the oppressive blackness. The familiar knot motif, carved into the door long ago, seems different. It's harder to make out against the darkness, but the lines appear deeper, sharper, almost vibrating with potential energy. Your mental state shifts abruptly. The initial flicker of curiosity is replaced by a wave of confusion, quickly followed by a cold wash of unease. You tried desperately to rationalize the door opening. Did you really leave it open? Were you just distracted? Could there have been a subtle tremor, a settling of the old house you didn't notice? You begin to doubt your own memory of securing it, questioning the very recent past, even though a stubborn certainty remains lodged beneath the rising panic. The darkness inside the door seems to pulse faintly, and from it, you feel a faint, unplaceable pull, a suggestion of something waiting just beyond the visible world. It feels less like an invitation and more like an inevitability. It's just a door, after all. What could possibly be inside? You turn away from the door, walking back into the familiar space of the main room. But the feeling doesn't leave. It clings to you like the strange, cold scent from the opening. You try to distract yourself, moving about the room, touching the worn surface of the furniture, the cool glass of the windows. But your eyes keep drifting back to the dark rectangle of the doorway, a black eye watching you from the corner of your vision. The silence inside seems to have spread slightly, dampening the faint sounds of the house settling. Even the air around you feels thinner now, harder to draw into your lungs fully. The small carved knot motif, which you saw on the doorframe, now seems to appear in other places. You notice it etched into the base of a lamp, part of the faded pattern on the wallpaper, a faint scar on the polished wood of a table. Or are you only seeing it now because you're looking for it? Your sense of reality feels stretched, the edges blurring between what is real and what your mind, unsettled by the open door, might be creating. The pull from the darkness is more distinct now, a subtle tugging at the edges of your awareness, like a forgotten name just out of reach. You find yourself pacing, drawn back towards the threshold, needing to see if it's still there, if it has changed again. Is it the house that holds the secret? Or is the secret merely waiting for you to find it within yourself? Drawn by the persistent, subtle tug, you find yourself standing before the doorway again. The opening hasn't changed size, but the darkness within appears even deeper, more absolute than before. It feels heavier, more suffocating. You reach out a hand, tentative, towards the threshold. Your fingers brush the edge of the doorframe, tracing the knot motif again. It feels rougher under your touch than it did before, the lines deeper, as if recently carved. And then you feel it. Not a temperature change, but a sensation of pressure, a faint vibration emanating from the darkness itself, like something humming very low, just below the range of hearing. A sound finally emerges from the void, but it's not a sound you recognize. It's a soft, wet slap, like something heavy shifting in viscous fluid, followed by a low, drawn-out scrape, as if something is dragging itself across a rough surface just out of sight. Your heart hammers against your ribs. This is no longer just an open door or a strange silence. This is movement, sound, presence. You stumble back, a choked cry catching in your throat. The rationalizations crumble completely now, leaving only raw, unreasoning fear. You know something is in there. The knot motif on the doorframe seems to twist and writhe as you look at it. Or perhaps that's just your vision blurring with terror. There is no going back from this knowledge. What have you awakened? Panic dictates your next movements. You back away quickly, turning your back on the gaping blackness and the horrifying sounds within. You find yourself retreating deeper into the house, into rooms that previously felt merely old, but now feel like fragile barriers against the unknown. You close doors behind you, instinctively, creating layers of wood and space between you and it. But closing the physical doors doesn't shut out the awareness. The silence follows, seeping under the floorboards, through the walls. The cold air lingers. The knot motif seems to be everywhere you look now, in the wood grain, the patterns in the dust motes, the way shadows fall in the corners. You press your hands over your ears, trying to block out the memory of the wet sound, the scrape. But the silence outside your hands is just as unnerving as the sounds were, perhaps more so, because it is the silence from the door. a silence that feels like watchful anticipation. You find a place to sit, huddled, trying to slow your racing heart, to make sense of what you heard, what you felt, what you saw or thought you saw in the twisting motif. You are alone, yet you are not alone. The house has shifted its posture towards you. It was waiting, and now it has revealed something. The pull from the darkness is gone, replaced by a heavy dread, a certainty that you are now inextricably linked to whatever resides within that impossible blackness. The doors you closed seem less like protection and more like temporary delays. The true door, the one into the silence and the scraping, remains open behind you, or perhaps, somehow, it is now open everywhere. You sit in the chilling quiet, listening not for sounds, but for the absence of them, wondering how long the quiet will last this time before it decides to break. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet. The frame groans, a sound like old bones snapping, and the door opens again. This time, it does not snap shut immediately. It moves slowly, ponderously, revealing the edge, then a sliver, then a wider view as you stand rooted, watching the gap widen. There is no choice, no instinct to flee, only a terrible compulsion to see. You lean forward, your breath catching, peering into the dark threshold. What is there is not a room. The darkness seems impossibly deep, drawing the eye inward. Yet it holds no discernible distance. It folds in on itself, a space that refuses to be measured or defined. Glimpses flicker within the void, not objects, but impressions of shape, of color that shifts and dissolves before the eye can register it. Are those walls? They look like walls, yet they are not solid, rippling like reflections on disturbed water. Or perhaps they are not there at all. The colors are wrong, hues that feel like sounds or textures, vibrating at the edge of perception. This space is fundamentally incorrect, a tear in the fabric of expected reality. Within this visual chaos, a pattern asserts itself, not a stable one, but a constant, swirling visual static, a shimmering field of impossible angles and fleeting light that feels both random and deliberate. It is the motif, woven into the very structure of this wrongness, visible now not on a surface, but within the dimension itself. A new sensation pricks at the edge of your hearing, a faint, high-pitched whine that seems to originate from behind your ears, not from the space itself. It intensifies when you focus on the impossible depth, a thin needle of sound piercing the surrounding silence. Looking away momentarily provides no relief. The world outside the doorway seems to shimmer and distort at the periphery of your vision, as if the wrongness seeps out, contaminating your sight. The air here feels thin, carrying a phantom scent of ozone and something else, something dry and ancient, like forgotten dust disturbed after centuries. Fear, cold and sharp, is a physical presence now, tightening your chest, making your hands tremble. This is not the mild unease or curiosity of before. This is a primal dread directed at the fundamental wrongness of existence. Yet, beneath the terror, a relentless current of obsession begins to flow. The need to understand why this impossible space exists, what it is, and why here, is a gnawing ache in your mind. It overrides the fear, creating a terrifying equilibrium where you are both terrified and utterly captivated, drawn closer to the brink of something incomprehensible. Is this truly happening? Or has something broken within the mind, projecting nightmare onto reality? The question offers no comfort. As the door slowly begins to swing back towards its frame, you notice something small glinting faintly on the floorboards, just outside the threshold. It wasn't there moments ago. You stoop and pick it up. It is a thimble, old and tarnished, made of heavy metal. It feels cool and solid in your palm, utterly mundane. But finding it here now feels profoundly wrong, like a single out-of-place thread pulled from a different tapestry, hinting at a presence, perhaps, or simply a moment unstuck from time, left behind by something or someone who knew this door before. The air does not just feel thick now. It presses, a physical weight against your lungs, dense with something that tastes like old dust and regret. The boundary doesn't merely waver, it bleeds. Darkness seeps from the edges of the doorframe, not like shadow, but like a viscous fluid that stains the light, saturating the room. The light itself seems to struggle, dimming and flickering, even though the source is constant. This is not just the door being open. It is the space behind the door, asserting itself into this reality. The walls of the room ripple, not visually, but structurally, like seeing through heat haze, yet it feels solid, wrong. Objects warp. A chair leg elongates and twitches like an insect limb. A familiar framed picture blurs and reforms into something monstrously abstract. The floor beneath your feet tilts imperceptibly, or perhaps your sense of balance is simply breaking. The sensory input is a chaotic symphony of dread. That low hum is everywhere now, vibrating in your teeth, seeming to originate from the air, the walls, the floor, from inside your own head. It's overlaid with sounds that shouldn't exist here. Faint, wet scraping, whispers that coil around you but fade when you try to pinpoint them. A sound like glass cracking, but nothing breaks. Static crackles visually now, too, a shimmering interference across your field of vision, like watching the world through a damaged screen. This static, once subtle, is now the fabric of the atmosphere, weaving itself into the distorted shapes, buzzing in the air, clinging to surfaces. It is the sound of reality tearing, or perhaps reasserting itself in a new, impossible form. This is the peak, the center point. Your mind rebels, grasping for anchors that no longer hold. You look at your hands, and for a moment they look alien, the lines too sharp, the skin the wrong color. A cold panic washes over you. Are these your hands? Are you still in the room? Or did you step through the threshold without realizing, leaving a part of yourself behind, or perhaps never being fully in the room to begin with? Memory flickers like the struggling light. Who are you? Why are you here? The certainty of identity fractures, leaving you adrift in a sea of distorted sensation. The person you thought you were feels distant, maybe even fictional. Through the haze of the hum and the static, a thought pierces the confusion, sharp and cold. This isn't just a random haunting, not just an old house with a bad secret. The door, the history, the waiting, it feels undeniably, terrifyingly personal. Linked to something you carry, something you are. As if the house didn't just draw you in, but recognized you, perhaps even called you home. A home you never knew you had. One built of shadows and fractured reality. The immediate, reality-bending climax recedes, leaving behind not silence, but a different kind of quiet. It settles like dust from a collapse you cannot see, heavy and unnatural in the air. The house breathes again, but the rhythm is broken, ragged. You stand amidst the aftermath, not unscathed, but fundamentally rearranged. The door is still there, perhaps, or maybe just a memory etched onto the wall where it once bloomed, a stain of impossible dark against the plaster. It is closed now, inert, or perhaps it was never truly a door at all, only an invitation you mistook for an exit. She feels it in her bones, a constant vibration beneath the skin, like distant static that never fades. It is the residue of worlds pressed too close, the hum of something vast and indifferent that brushed against her mind. The key, the one sought for so long, is gone, lost in the maelstrom, or perhaps never tangible. But the feeling of its tumblers turning remains lodged in her fingers, a phantom ache. The silence that fills the rooms now is not peaceful. It is expectant, charged with the knowledge of what transpired within its walls. Every shadow seems to deepen, to hold shapes the eye cannot quite define, forms that shift just at the periphery of vision. You are not the same. Sleep offers no rest, only disjointed glimpses of impossible geometries and the echoing sound of a lock clicking shut, or perhaps opening further. The air in the house never feels right. Clinging damply, smelling faintly of something ancient and sour, even when the windows are thrown wide. Your own reflection in the glass seems distant, a stranger residing behind a barrier that wasn't there before. Have you escaped the house, or merely become another fixture within its walls, another piece added to its long, strange history? The thought is a cold seed lodged in your chest. The motif of the door, once a path to revelation or terror, is now a permanent fixture in your perception. Every closed door is suspect, every threshold a potential point of no return. The horror wasn't defeated, it was absorbed. It lives in the too deep silence, in the uncanny stillness of familiar objects, in the way your own heartbeat feels like a foreign drum. The house is quiet, yes, but it is the quiet of a predator sated, waiting. Some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed again. And if you hear it again tonight, don't answer. Not yet.